Hey guys, welcome to another math video. For this video, I'll be talking about functions. So let's get started here. This is what I'll be talking about. I'm hoping it won't be too long of an explanation. So here we go. So you're familiar with equations, and the problem with something being an equation is that we need to verify it's a function. So there's a couple ways we can do it. One way is by making a table of values. So when we make a table, we want to make sure that each x value goes to a different y value. Okay. The other way we can do it is to create a graph to see if it's a function. And there's a test we can do to see if a graph of a line is a function. Okay, so that test is called the vertical line test. So it looks like this. So what you do is you draw vertical lines through your graph, and if the vertical line, each vertical line only passes through your graph one time for each vertical line, then that graph is a function. Okay, now if you draw vertical lines through your graph and if it hits the graph more than one time, then that graph is not a function. It's what we call a relation. Okay, so you see here, this vertical line would hit the graph twice, and out here it hits the graph maybe once. Here it would probably hit like 3 times like it does here. So this is also a relation, not a function. Not like the previous two graphs, because in the previous two graphs, we go back, each vertical line that would be drawn will only hit the graph once. Okay. Okay, so now the nice thing about functions is that if you're told an equation is already a function, you don't have to worry about checking. Okay, so the definition for a function is each input is associated with one distinct output. Basically, that means each x value goes only to one y value, and that's the real definition of a function. Because if one x value went to 2 different y values, that doesn't make it a function anymore. Now, 2 different x values can go to the same y value, and that's okay. But the same x cannot go to 2 or more different y's. Okay, and this is the notation we use generally for functions. It's called function notation, and we read it as f of x, not f times x, even though you've probably seen parentheses, meaning multiplication. But in this case, we read it as f of x. And you don't have to always use f. You can use whatever letter you like, really. But generally, the ones we see are F, G, H, M, N, P, or something like that. But generally, we use F because F is the first letter in the word function. So you see that quite a bit, actually. Okay, so this is kind of what I was talking about in the definition. You see how each input goes to a distinct output. Same here. So here it's okay for 2 inputs to go to the same output, and that's okay. The thing we don't want to see is the same input going to 2 different outputs. So you see how in this case we have A going to both Q and R. So this is what we call a relation. Okay. We can still create a graph for it. If these were all numbers, we could still create a graph for it, but it would fail the vertical line test. Okay, so let's jump into an example here. So let's take a look at these ordered pairs and see if it makes a function or a relation. So remember, basically the easiest way to do something like this, where you have ordered pairs and you're being asked to see if it's a function, is to see if any x's appear more than once. Okay, so let's take a look. So here we have 2 appearing more than once, so that automatically makes it a relation. Now, if this was a different number here, like say 4, -8, instead of a 2, then this will be a function, because remember from the previous slides, we can have 2 different inputs going to the same output. that's okay, but we can't have the same input going to two different outputs. That does not make it a function. Okay? So this is a relation, not a function. Let's take a look at another one. So this time, we're going to be looking at graphs. We're going to use the vertical line test to see if it's a function or not. Okay, so if we drew vertical lines through this graph, you can see that majority of the vertical lines would hit this graph twice, meaning it's not a function, it's a relation. Okay, take a look at this one. So if we drew vertical lines through this, each vertical line would only touch the graph once. So this graph is the graph of a function. Alright, so I hope sum that up for you. I hope that made sense. Of course, anytime you have the picture, it's going to be easier to tell if it's a function or not. And what's nice is if you see an equation in function notation, you don't have to go and check to see if it is a function, because it's already telling you, hey, this equation is already a function because I wouldn't use function notation if it wasn't. Alright guys, well that's it for this video. I hope you learned something from it. If not, well, I got more videos for you to watch. So tune in for my next one, and I will see you next time.